What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, and we are here for another episode of the UNC Football Show. And AJ, it is Duke week, big time matchup this weekend between North Carolina and Duke. 8 p.m. kickoff in Kenan Stadium. That game will be on ACC Network. I did shed a tear when I heard it was an 8 p.m. kickoff, AJ. I'm not going to lie. I had a little tear trickle down my face because I knew, well, that means I'll probably be in bed by 4 a.m. Yeah, that's going to be a late night. It'll be a cool spectacle. I always love covering the night games, but, man, they are absolutely late night. So I just had to throw that in there real quick.
You shed a tear?
Just one. Just one.
How do you shed anger?
There's a lot of punch a hole in the wall, maybe,
or WTH or something like hole in the wall. I've got some good. I might just do that because I won't leave Kenan at least until 4 a.m.
It's brutal, man.
And then I got to be back at the Dean Dome by noon because there's basketball the next day.
I did thank you when I saw that. I was like, that was worst case scenario for everybody that has to come.
But we did find out that Clemson's 3:30 because we have an 8 o'clock basketball game at home the night before. So
that ended up working out.
I thought that was going to be noon. I figured that's the way it works. It's going to be noon.
Yeah. Brutal 8 p.m. kickoff. Fans are excited about it, but
the glamorous world of sports media.
Yeah. Nobody cares about our late nights or anything like that.
No,
but
some people actually, I had one of the guys that works in the press box for football games say to me the other day, he came up to me, he said, "So how long were you stuck in the stadium in Atlanta, Bobby Dodd Stadium?" Because I was locked in and had a police officer help me out and actually drove me to my car. It's a 2,400 step walk from the media parking to the stadium, which is absurd.
Yep, I've done that walk.
And I get my steps. I have no problem walking, but you don't want to. If it's hot, you're going to sweat like you know what. If it's raining, you're screwed.
Or if it's 4 a.m., you don't really want to walk across.
Or it's 4 a.m. and you're walking through hot Atlanta, you don't really want to be doing that. So
it's brutal, man.
Anyway.
It's brutal. I had to just throw that out there because I was disappointed to see that. I was disappointed to see that.
But some people actually do think it's funny that we bring it up every once in a while. They sort of track it. And I get some messages sometimes, 3:30 in the morning. You still in the stadium? Ha ha ha.
You gotta love it. Like, stop, man.
I was in the Dean Dome real late. I mean, the guys that wanted to get clean kept opening the door and closing it, waiting for me to leave. I'm like, guys, you can come on in and do it.
Yeah.
But we had a lot to do the other night, and I wanted to make sure that we because with this basketball team, there's just so many new things.
Oh, God, is it ever, man? So many things to talk about.
And the football team right now, just hit to me the most fascinating stretch of the season. So we're going to obviously dive into that. But there's going to be a lot of work to do. So there's going to be a lot of postscript for this game, for Clemson, for NC State. So I expect to stay in press boxes real late the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, you better get ready for that because it's incoming, AJ. And before we dive into it, this show is presented by Underdog Fantasy. Big thank you to them for sponsoring. We'll talk about them a little bit later, as always. So stay tuned for that. But AJ, let's go ahead and dive into our rundown here. We will preview the matchup a little bit later on. Carolina currently an 11.5-point favorite, so I was a little bit surprised by that, to be honest. I know Duke minus Riley Leonard probably playing a factor in that, but as we'll talk about later, they're pretty dang good defensively. So Carolina's going to have to show up on offense as well to be able to put some points up on the Blue Devils on Saturday night. But AJ, I want to start with injuries. It's where we typically start with this one in the first place. So I know you were at the press conference earlier this week, plenty of injury updates that Mac likes to give on everybody. So what injury updates can you give us? Because from what I've seen and heard, it doesn't appear that there's a ton of guys that are up in the air or injured right now, which I guess is a positive thing this time of year.
Yeah, they're going to monitor Nate McCollum during the week. And I ran into Caleb Hood on Tuesday when I was leaving after player interviews.
He didn't play against Campbell at all, did he?
His brother did.
Yeah, I know. And he didn't.
His brother got a couple of runs. He didn't play. They were down to 2 scholarship running backs in that room, which is why DJ Jones said Tuesday that, like, hey, maybe we might need you to come over here. So DJ's been learning the playbook, so in case they need him. But he's staying on the defensive side for now. But I ran into Caleb Hood on the concourse after I had done player interview reports and stuff. And he said he's 100% safe, feels great. He's ready to roll now.
That's good.
But yeah, when healthy, he's a serviceable player. He's a good player.
Good
Can help
option.
him.
Yeah.
He's just been banged up so much. He's sort of like the Puff Johnson of the football program.
I know. Yeah, it's an accurate comparison.
He can help a lot. And Puff, by the way, missed Penn State's opener because he's injured.
Oh, did he? Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's too bad.
You got to feel for that a little bit. He just cannot.
I know. And you got to feel for Caleb. But if they have Caleb back this week, that's good. That means they'll have a third scholarship running back available. And you need and he's a physical guy, too. So you might need him against Duke because Duke's a very physical team, very physical up front. Nothing else really major this team is actually fairly healthy right now, all things considered for this time of year. So
that's a positive.
Not much on the injury report. It's good thing we don't have a sponsor for the injury report right now because they wouldn't get any bang for their buck.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. Yeah, well, again, that's positive going in. Again, when you're going into this game, really tough stretch coming up, you want to have a healthy team. So again, I think you got if you're a fan,
Tayon Holloway too. Tayon Holloway, as well. He missed the game the other day.
Yeah, he missed the game as well. So it'd be good to get him back, especially because he's been a obviously a reliable corner for them this year. So you always need guys in that room, especially with Carolina's injury record over the last 4 or 5 years when it comes to defensive backs. Been a lot better this year. So I'm sure they're feeling pretty good about that.
Corner. Mac reminded us of the Duke game in 2019 when they had to thrust Day Hollins into action that night because they were so thin. 2 straight years Day got ended up starting in the middle of the season because of all the attrition. He's now starting at Charlotte for his final year of eligibility. But
good.
It's good to get Tayon back just because they have another body over there. I do think Armani Chapman should be the starter for the remainder of the year. He's got the experience. And Tayon's done some nice things, but he's also shown that he's a young player. He's got enough on film. He's got enough snaps. He'll be fine. He'll have a ton of film for the offseason. But I think Chapman should be the guy at corner from this point on. Tayon can play, but I would have Chapman take as many snaps as he can over there at corner, along with Marcus Allen on the other side. Marcus Allen's good.
He is good. I think they're in a pretty good position at that cornerback room and DB room right now. They got a lot of guys, and again, not a lot of injuries. So that's
and they're gotten healthier at safety. Stick Lane knows what they're doing now, and he's played really, really well. He needs more snaps. He is a physical safety. Will Hardy played 40-something snaps this past weekend. He's kind of back where he needs to be, and he's a good player. And what they have now is when Don Chapman struggles or Gio struggles. Gio generally doesn't struggle. He doesn't have super high upside, but he's been pretty consistent.
Steady,
Chapman kind of is up and down a little bit more. And when he's in a down period, they can put in one of those guys, and it's an upgrade. They're in pretty good shape at safety. They've got 4 guys over there they like, and Stick Lane has another year. So next year, Lane and Hardy are probably their starting safeties, and I think they'll be in really good shape with those guys.
Oh yeah, no, that's a positive room to have back there. A lot of talent over there, and a lot of experience too, which is good. So, Andrew, we'll move on from injuries. We'll keep this thing kind of flowing. I want to talk about the vibe around the Kenan Football Center. We tend to always hit on that during these shows because I think it's important. And when you look at Carolina's last 3 games, 2 tough losses and followed it up with a big win over, I know, Campbell. But again, and I mean, when I say big, I don't mean big in terms of beating a big time opponent. I mean, just in terms of margin of victory, comfortable win and was able to kind of reset a little bit. Maybe I know you wrote in your, I don't know if you wrote in your column, I believe you did after the Campbell game. Maybe you're asking Mac about it. We talked about it in 3 things about Mojo and Carolina getting its mojo back a little bit. And I know some people, fans especially, didn't, I think, kind of misinterpreted what you were saying there in terms of like when you beat Campbell, how do you get your mojo back after beating Campbell and losing those 2 games before? Like you can't get your mojo back. So I think I want you to kind of clarify what you mean by that, because again, I think looking at what happened in the 2 weeks before, it was a very negative vibe around the program. A lot of fans are pissed off, frustrated. Yeah. And I know the program's frustrated too, because those are games they didn't want to lose and didn't expect to lose, I'm sure. So what is the vibe around the Kenan Football Center? Is it feel like a little bit of like they hit a little hard reset like you can do on your computer a little bit and just boot it back up? Is that what it kind of feels like over there right now?
It does. And I also did a daily drop Tuesday explaining the mojo thing because a lot of people just didn't get it and they still don't get it. It is not, I'm not talking about football. I'm talking about up here.
Yeah.
And really everything begins up here. Here connects to here, and then that connects to the rest of your body. And they needed a cleansing, if you will. And it wasn't just the game, but the week and the game, and then coming out of it and everybody playing and all the feel-good stuff that went on helped a lot. It was it was a snipping of the cord to how they felt for a couple of weeks. And honestly, you go back to the UVA week, I didn't feel like the vibe was great that week going into that game, but I didn't feel like it was bad. It was just kind of there. And it was one of those things that became clearer after the fact, right? I didn't like the vibe I got the week of the Georgia Tech game. I thought the residue of the UVA loss and other factors, the crowd turnout, those kind of things were affecting people in the building in the Kenan Football Center. And a lot of people didn't like what I said about it, but I could tell you, I wasn't alone in that opinion. They saw it too. And it was perplexing to a lot of people who matter.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah.
I think what also helped this past weekend, because we go straight down the line, man, straight down the middle here. I think the crowd was a positive this past Saturday. I think they had more people than anybody in the program expected to show up, more than a lot of us in the media expected to show up. I venture to guess they had close to 40,000, around 40,000 showed up for that game. I mean, a lot of us thought it might be around 30. And I think that was uplifting. The way the game played out with the positive things that happened and the bench guys getting to play and playing well and all that kind of stuff helped the psyche. I don't know if they got any better from a football perspective because some of the things they had been doing wrong the first 2 weeks, they were doing wrong early against Campbell. Yeah. And Gene says they fixed them. Okay, well, you just win your battles against Campbell. It shouldn't be anything more than that. I just think that right now, going into this stretch of games, they're better having played that game than having an open date, which is what Max said, and I agree with him. And I don't know how well they would have handled an ACC opponent last weekend. I just think that the weight of those two losses was so huge and so daunting that anything they could get, just, it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example in life, but sometimes you just need a total shift in course. If you're not a picnic at the park guy and you're in this mundane whatever it is and you're struggling and you just go do a picnic, or you up and go to a park, you go to a movie, you go to an amusement park, you go to a ball game, whatever it is, something that's totally out of the norm, just to sort of reset things. Yeah. I don't know if I gave good examples or not, but I think that's what this served as. So I do think they're in a pretty good frame of mind going into this game. The challenges that they faced against Virginia and Georgia Tech are still there. I'm not going to believe that they have fixed those until they show on the field they fix those things. And we'll talk about it coming up here in a bit. Now, I'll tease it with this. The questions about changing the narrative of being soft that Mac addressed back in the spring and talked a lot about in August. And we had talked and written about saying, hey, maybe this team really isn't, that they've changed that perception, because that narrative, because the third quarter against Miami, that was the toughest and most physical I've seen North Carolina defense in a long time. Well, that returned in the last 2 weeks. So they have three very physical teams remaining, and they have an opportunity to reverse that narrative again. Whatever the perception of them as a tough or not so tough program is in the off season will be shaped these next 3 weeks. So if this was a reset, if this was a get your mojo back, they should handle it better than they did against Virginia and Georgia Tech.
Yeah. And again, we'll find out this weekend, and we'll definitely find out over the next few weeks, because like you've talked about, this is the stretch everybody circled on their calendar when the schedule came out months and months ago. So this is a big time stretch for the Tar Heels, and one, if they're not ready to play, if they don't play physical, if they're a team that's not playing some of its best football, they can easily lose all three of these games. And again, we'll see what happens starting this Saturday with Duke at home. But AJ, we'll dive into the Duke matchup here in a few minutes, but I want to talk about Senior Day, because obviously that's a big thing coming up this weekend for North Carolina. Had press conferences this week where we've heard from some players, and specifically Drake May. I want to hit on his comments about walking in Senior Day, because I know basically what he told you guys is he hasn't made a decision yet, which you probably expect. I'd be shocked. You see this every year. We saw this with Sam Howell. He wasn't a guy coming out 3 games before the season and saying, but I'm 4 games away from getting the heck out of Chapel Hill. Can't wait for that. I mean, you expect those comments coming up from anybody. That's not going to happen mid-season. That's just a stupid thing to say. So who is going to walk on Senior Day? Because to me, Senior Day is always interesting, and it's been made a lot more interesting over the last few years because of that COVID year that's kind of come in. But I mean, mean, there's countless guys over the past years that have walked on senior day and announced a month later that they're coming back for another year for, because they have an extra year eligibility for whatever reason. So who of note will walk from what you've heard so far this week?
I don't have any expectations over who will walk versus who won't walk than what anybody would expect. If you look at the roster and you go to goheels.com, click the year, all those guys are going to walk. That doesn't mean, I think a lot of them will be back. Some can be back. Mm-hmm. For example, the Des Evanses and Miles Murphys of the world, the Jonathan Adorno, for example, he's a senior, but he'll probably be back. DJ Jones told us Tuesday he'll be back. And he also said, as I sidebar, that he might be back in the running back room in the spring because a lot of that depends on what Elijah Green and George Pettaway do.
Yeah.
So he could move back. There are guys that are going to walk and they're going to take advantage of another year. If you're someone like a Des Evans or a Miles Murphy, Des had a good start to the year. He hasn't been as good the second half of the season as he was earlier. Murphy's been okay. Not when he was a freshman, people had him pegged for, third round type of guy by the time he'd leave. I don't think he's that guy now. Mm-hmm. They can use another year to come back and enhance their stock. I do think that there are examples of guys who use that fifth year that enhance their stock in both sports, football and basketball, where it makes a lot of sense to come back. You get another year of your education. In some cases, you get a year into grad school. And why not do it? Because if football doesn't work out, then you've got that to fall back on. So it's a good option to have. I actually like a fifth-year rule anyway. I think if guys graduate in 4 years, they should get a fifth-year competition anyway. I'm a big believer in that. I think it's better for college athletics. I think it's better for these kids, especially with a lot of them transferring right away. Sometimes they make a bad decision, and if they can graduate and then move on to a third school and make a better athletic decision, I think it's wise. But I think these guys will walk. I'm not going to give you any other specific names. So I think they're all probably going to show up and walk. Then they'll have decisions to make afterward. And a lot of that will depend on how the last 3 games in the postseason goes, because they could have 5 more games. Mm-hmm. So the guys that walk Saturday might still have 5 more games to play to finish this season. And a whole lot can happen in those 5 games. And I say 5 because they still have a chance to get to the ACC championship game. Mm-hmm. So the 3 regular season, the ACC championship game, and a bowl game. So that's a lot. They've played 9 games, and they can still play 5 more. So I think that December with a lot of these guys is going to be really, really interesting, and maybe even into early January, because Ed Montilus didn't announce he was coming back until, the second week of January, I think, last year.
Yeah.
Or it was maybe the first week, because I remember talking to Willie Lampkin in January, and we had just learned about Ed. And I asked him, I said, Ed Montilus is going to be back. You were brought in sort of replace him. He says, I'm not worried about competition. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that from him, by the way. So,
and Montilus was a guy who didn't he say he was stepping away from football and then kind of reversed his mind, changed his mind or something like that?
Yeah, because then they started workings and he missed it. He realized that
I get it, man. It's been a part of your life for that long.
He missed being a part of the culture, and he's actually had his best season.
Yeah, he's
improved. He'll get into an NFL camp if he wants to go that route, and he might be someone who does, and I don't know. I do not know. I have no information on that, but I think that there are options for some of the guys. Like I said, Kamen Rucker's going to have to make make a decision. Now, you would think that based on his performance this year and the fact that he's a really good football player, that the NFL would be a logical next move for him now. But the NFL is stuck on specs. Like, you've got to fit in all these different suits. Now, they've loosened that some at quarterback, but a guy like Kamen, there's a lot of teams that are like, well, I don't know if we want a 6-foot edge rusher, but he's a football player. So I guarantee you, whenever the NFL people come to practice and they watch him, Mac's sitting there and Monachino's sitting there talking to him saying, that guy gets a quarterback. Look at the way he rushes 6'5" offensive tackles. Mm-hmm. And not just getting around him, it's the physicality that he uses to get around him as well. So he'll have a decision to make. He's a real academic guy, so he may value the idea of another year of grad school. I could get a year of grad school in paid for. The NFL will be there a year later. Maybe he can improve coverage or something like that, and like Cedric Reed wanted to improve a couple of minute things and did, which is why he may end up in the first round when he decided to come back. So Rucker may choose to do something like that too. I have no idea. It would not surprise me either way with him, but he'll walk and he'll be out there with his parents and doing all that stuff, but he could also be back next year. It's so different now than it was several years ago.
Yeah.
Remember, I used to write these things on all the guys playing their final game, and I was like, this is what they did in their UNC careers, and I don't do that now because a lot of them are going to be back. Yeah. So it's just a different animal.
It is. Yeah. The countless guys over the last couple of years, especially you walk and half the guys come back and, do it again the following year. So it's just,
and by the way, Ced is leaving. He said he's leaving. This is his fourth year. He could have gone last year and been a mid-round, maybe a little higher pick. I'm telling you, when Cedric Gray goes to the combine in Indianapolis, and he'll go, and then he does all the interviews, and not just the stuff there, but when he starts meeting individually with teams, he's going to move up.
Oh, 100%. If Chaz Surratt is on an NFL team right now, Cedric Gray will be on an NFL team making plays next year. I mean, I'm not hating on Chaz. Chaz is a great player.
No, Chaz is good.
Chaz is good. But Cedric Gray, I think the high end with him and just I just think if Chaz can do it, Cedric linebacker, I think Cedric could be potentially even better.
Cedric's a 10-year NFL guy.
Agreed. He's got it, and he's got it up here too. I know Chaz, smart football player too. I'm not taking credit away from him. He's very smart football player, but I think
Chaz,
Cedric Gray can do
Cedric has been as much a pleasure to cover, to watch develop and cover, and I wouldn't say get to know, but from a media player standpoint, get to know the last few years as any football player I've ever covered at Carolina.
Is he best interview on the team?
Because it's not that he is the most eloquent guy on the team. It's that he just, and I'm not saying he's not eloquent. It's just that he explains things. DJ Jones said yesterday, he was Ced's roommate first 2 years. They got to Carolina. They were in the same class. And I asked him, now that you're on the defensive side, how have you gotten to know Ced as a defensive player on that side of the ball? Meaning once you step on the field, how is he different than maybe how you saw him when you were running back? And he was talking about leadership and stuff, and leadership isn't always vocal. Making your run fits is such an extremely important part of playing the star, the nickel position, which is what DJ plays. And he was new coming over there, so he said is always reminding him. He tells him what the defensive linemen do with the run fits, what the linebackers do, and next in line is the nickel. He says he just simplifies everything. When he explains things to teammates, he just simplifies it. And I thought that's not surprising, but I think it's fascinating because he literally is like a coach on the field. You don't get that too often in football. You get it in basketball with, remember the old Dean Smith point guards, they're a coach on the court, the Derek Phelpses and the Jimmy Blacks of the world. Ced's like that in football, and he will walk. He is going pro, and I think he very well could be a first-round pick. I think odds are very good. They have 2 first-round picks next April.
I agree. 100%.
Did you like that segue?
Yeah, it's good stuff right there, man. Because we are going to talk about the other guy that you mentioned, Drake May. Again, basically said he hadn't made a decision yet. I think everybody that has a brain expects him to go, and a lot of people are saying he's the number 1 quarterback in the draft and to surpass Caleb Williams. So why would he not? So, thoughts on what were your thoughts on his comments and what ultimately will happen with him on Saturday? Do you think he walks? Does he not? What do you think goes on?
Well, no, he's not going to walk. He said he's not going to because he says it's for seniors. Yeah.
And it makes sense.
Is absolutely not he is absolutely not a make it about himself kind of guy. That is as genuine as could be. There are people that sometimes think he's too folksy, too well, I don't know what the right word would be, but it's genuine. It's who he is. He's not going to go out there and he also, first of all, I do think he knows what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to take away from other guys. Like a guy like Corey Gaynor, who's become one of his best friends. He's had a fascinating, impressive, unique path to this point. He's class 2017, high school. And he's walking. And I think Drake looks at someone like Corey and says, this guy's earned the right to walk here. He's earned the right to be celebrated as having achieved and finished his career. And he doesn't look at himself the same way because he has options. And because he's only played really in 2 seasons, and Corey's played in a bunch of seasons, and he's gone through injuries and the transfer and everything else. So I think that's genuine with who Drake really is. I don't think that there's any BS or hokiness about that at all.
No, I don't think so.
Excuse me. I do think he's going to leave. Has he sat there and said, yeah, I'll probably go to the Bears or whoever, I'm ready to go? I don't think he needs to do that. He's just, the information he's going to get when he sits down is going to, everything's going to point, the arrow is going to point to the NFL. It wouldn't make sense for him to come back.
Agreed.
Because there's no refining for him to do in college. The thing that he needed to do to show NFL teams this season, he's done. And that's the game management, which we've talked about some. And a lot of people need to understand that they don't run as many RPOs, but he does have the run pass option, if you will, at the line of scrimmage. So he'll see a defensive alignment and call the run then instead of the delayed handoff RPO that they got in trouble with sometimes before. And he calls the run plays there. So sometimes when you see these drives where Amarian's getting it, it's Drake giving the ball to him. Drake hasn't gone out there and said, I'm going to throw for 5,000 yards this year, and I'm going to throw for 50 touchdown passes. He's gone out there and managed the game every week, and that's what winning quarterbacks do in the NFL. Yeah. You can have the big passing games, but the guys who win rings are the guys that if you go look, sometimes they have that 160-yard passing game because it was a night they ran the ball. And they ran the ball. They managed the game that way. And we've seen that from Drake some this year. So his game management and his NFL approach to the game has been more on display this year than it was a year ago. And I agree with you. I think he's not what we're hearing. I've heard a little bit, and I think it's trending the direction where he's going to be the top pick.
Yeah, I think so.
He's not getting – I did the Q&A, the 5 questions with Connor O'Neill, runs the Duke site in our network, and he asked about Drake this year. And I said, he's not getting as much national attention, but he is each week he further solidifies himself as the number 1 pick. Yeah. And part of that is because Caleb Williams lost money last weekend. Yeah. That guy wants a percentage of your franchise. Okay. Well, good luck with that. Yeah. That doesn't mean he won't be a great player, but Drake's
not doing himself any favors with some of that stuff coming out. Yeah.
Dina was telling me after Drake's sophomore year in high school, he's got the it factor, AJ. And he has the it factor, and he still does.
Yeah, she was right, man. When Dina talks,
as usual, she was right. So he won't walk, but I suspect he'll go. And we'll get in down the road about what Carolina's going to do about the quarterback position. Don't want to get into that now.
No, not the time.
But we'll get into it in a few weeks. So it'll be a more appropriate time to get into something like that and have a deeper discussion about that. Yeah. So enjoy Drake. It'll be his last home game. So enjoy him.
Agreed.
When he runs out on the field, he should get a little extra ovation.
100%, man. He's been best quarterback I've seen play at Carolina. There's been some good ones over the last 10 years in particular.
Placed a good one.
Yeah.
And Sam looks better now than he did.
Yeah, man. He's doing good. He's doing a really good job for the Commanders.
It's weird how we sometimes confuse the pro performance with the college performance.
I know.
And Sam was awesome in college. Don't take me wrong. It's just that I think he surprised some people so far in the NFL.
Agreed.
Including every team that passed on him for 4.5 rounds.
Agreed. He's a nice situation there with the Commanders, and you look at his stats and some of the things he's doing this year. I think he's a franchise quarterback with them for the future. I think they're pretty pleased with him.
I think he's a place that they're going to be very, very. They're going to stick with him. They're going to be very patient and stick with him. And he's already done really well. He's had some stuff that he needs to learn, but
yeah, he's
in a really good spot. He's in a good spot, and he's also playing for a guy who was there when Cam Newton came along.
Exactly.
I covered the Panthers when Ron Rivera got there and when Cam Newton got there. I covered them. And it was fascinating to see how Rivera handled Newton. Newton wasn't easy to handle at times. Yeah. Sam, I imagine, is a dream compared to Newton at times. And so he knows how to bring these guys along.
Yeah, he's in a good situation with Washington. I've kind of become. I don't have an NFL team, so the Commanders are the team I've been watching more this year because I really like covering Sam. I think he's a really nice guy and a heck of a football player. So I've enjoyed kind of watching them. De'Ami Brown out there as well for the Commanders too. So he's in a good situation there. So hopefully he'll keep winning in Washington. They'll keep being pleased with him. But we'll see where Drake ends up next year. But last game in Kenan, I think we can safely say, like you mentioned. So, AJ, before we move on and talk about Duke, because we're going to dive into the preview here in a second, do want to give a thank you to Underdog Fantasy, and we need to take a quick break to talk about them because they are our official fantasy partner. And Underdog, it's super easy to use. As you guys know, you go on the app and go pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total than what is listed. Just do that with 2 to 5 different players and you are in business. And if you go 5 for 5, you can 20x your money. I'll give you an example. We're talking about Sam Howell right now. Maybe this Sunday you want to put together an entry with all UNC alums in the NFL. So there's multiple guys out there that you could factor in there as well besides Sam Howell. And let's say we'll focus on him. You can select an entry with Sam Howell, all going higher than their stat total. So let's say you're like, I think Sam's going to have a big day this Sunday. I'm going to pick the higher number. And if you hit that, you win money. It's that simple. It's one of the easiest fantasy games out there to play. Say we see a lot of you guys downloading Underdog, using the promo code HEAL and having fun with it. We absolutely love to see that. So make sure you guys keep signing up. And if you haven't, go check it out. Links in the description below. Make sure you use that promo code HEAL, like I mentioned, to get your deposit doubled up to $100. Just visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register again with that promo code HEAL. Must be 18 plus and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. Again, we make it easy for you guys here at Tar Heel Illustrated. Click the link in the description, hit sign up, put the promo code HEAL in, get that deposit doubled by up to $100. Big thank you to Underdog for sponsoring this show. All right, AJ, let's dive into Duke a little bit. 6-3, 3-2 in ACC play. I mentioned it earlier, but 24th ranked Carolina, currently an 11.5 point favorite over the Blue Devils. I think that line is a heck of a lot closer if Riley Leonard's playing, but announced recently that toe injury, going to keep him out for an extended period of time. Freshman Grayson Loftus expected to start in his place. He did start in the win over Wake Forest last week. Not super impressive in terms of stat totals, and Duke's offense has not been super impressive when Leonard hasn't played. But the reason Duke is 6-3, AJ, is because of that defense. Mike Elko has done a fantastic job with that side of the ball. Best scoring defense in the ACC, allowing just 15.7 points per game. 5th best in yards per game, allowing 329. I believe Carolina's around that 390 mark. So you're talking, a 60-yard difference between those two teams. And again, I think this is an interesting matchup because I think we're having a completely different conversation if Riley Leonard's in the mix. But when you look at how good that Duke defense has been, AJ, that to me is the most intriguing matchup. What does Carolina do offensively to try to put up some points on this Duke team? Because Carolina's offense has, for the most part, been pretty good this year. We have seen certain games and certain instances where they've struggled in certain quarters to move the ball. They've had a lot of, I've jokingly said at times that I think Carolina has some of the fastest 3-and-outs that I've ever seen in my life, especially as a guy who's on the field. I'm messing with my camera, and then 45 seconds later, the offense is walking off the field, and I'm like, this drive's over already. So again, it's a very intriguing matchup in that respect. And I'm looking forward to see how Carolina plays offensively against Duke's really, really good defense. Again, one of the best, if not the best defenses in the league with how they've played this year. So AJ, when you look at this matchup, does it come down to how Carolina plays offensively? Because again, Duke hasn't been great without Riley Leonard. I wasn't very impressed with what I saw from Loftus last week against Wake Forest. They ended up winning that game on a field goal. Wake Forest, a team that's struggling this year offensively, maybe equally as Duke has in the last few weeks without Leonard. So does it come down to that side of the ball more? Are we focusing on that, or are we focusing on that too much? Because again, this is a Carolina defense that in their last 2 ACC games, particularly against Georgia Tech, were absolutely gashed at times. And again, don't want to relive it, but gave up 250 plus running yards in the fourth quarter against Georgia Tech a couple weeks ago. So how do you look at this matchup? Because to me, it's interesting. If Carolina plays offensively like they're capable of, even against this good Duke defense, I think they win, because I just don't think Duke has enough offensively. But I'm having flashbacks to last year, the NC State game when was it Ryan Finley or Ben Finley, whatever, I can't keep them straight, for NC State came in and not torched them, but did plenty and enough to get the win in that game. So I'm a little bit torn on this one because I'm just not sure what to expect.
I think Carolina moves the ball against anybody enough. I think they score points. I think this game is going to be won based on how Carolina deals with the run game. Duke is still run the ball well. They didn't run the ball well at Louisville. Louisville was a disaster.
Yeah, shut out
But
that
if you look at the other 3 games that Leonard either didn't play or played very little and was banged up, they've averaged 190 yards rushing.
And that's been Carolina's weakness is defending that run.
Duke's got a good offensive line. They run the ball well. Even it's a testament to Duke that when they have guys like Henry Beelan and Grayson Loftus at quarterback, when teams, there's not a whole lot they're going to throw at them from a passing perspective, and Duke's still running for 190 yards.
Yeah.
That's because they're tough up front. They've got some receivers you have to respect, so you can't just sell out completely on the run. And the stop of the run's been an issue the last couple of weeks. Even with Campbell the other day, it was an issue at first. They weren't great at making the run fit. So that's, to me, where the game's going to be won or lost. If Carolina can match Duke's physicality and stop the run and bow up there and force Loftus or whoever ends up getting snaps, because if he struggles, I could see them making a change.
Yeah, it would make sense.
They could force Duke's young, inexperienced quarterbacks to have to beat them with their arm. Then Carolina's going to win the game, could win going away. I don't think they're going to win going away. I think 11.5 is way too many points.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw that, honestly.
That's perplexing. I think maybe I'm not even sure it should even be a touchdown. It's like, have you watched these teams play?
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a disrespect factor with Duke. Duke's a legitimate football team. Duke is stopping Sam Hartman 1 yard shorter away from having won that game.
I know.
Duke was leading in Tallahassee when Leonard went down.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good team. They got a lot of good parts. The quarterback situation is what it is, but the other parts are still really good.
Mm-hmm.
So they can still run the ball. So I think Carolina's got to do a pretty solid job of stopping the run. If Duke's in the 230-yard range late in the fourth quarter, I think Carolina could be in trouble because that Duke will use the clock. They'll keep clock. They'll chew clock. They'll shorten the game. And that means fewer possessions for Carolina, which means they're not going to score as many points. So I think Carolina's going to move the ball. They may not be highly prolific, but I still see Carolina getting into the 30s against their last 3 opponents.
Yeah.
The question is, what do the opponents do to them?
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing up. That's the biggest question mark around this team right now. Yeah.
So force Loftus to beat you with his arm. And if he does, then, well, I mean, we've seen that play before.
Mm-hmm.
Saw it last year against Georgia Tech. Saw it against State. We've seen it. We've seen backups. App State had a backup in there who threw all over him this year. So it's not like that hadn't happened before. But you got to stop the run. It's plain and simple. Football. I like what Mac's been saying this all the last couple of weeks because I think the nature around the program, the vibe around the program, fans and everything has kind of got off the rails a little bit. But football is a simple game played by complicated people.
Yeah.
And it really is. There's so much scheming and there's so much planning and there's so much chalkboard stuff that goes on. But at the end of the day, what happens on both sides of the line of scrimmage is the greatest indicator of what's going to happen at the end of the scoreboard. And in a game like this, and quite frankly, in the last 3 games this season, it's almost going to be the same recipe. Clemson's got more talent than Duke or State, so they'll have some stuff to deal with there. But honestly, if Carolina wins defensively at the line of scrimmage Saturday night, they're going to win the football game. The same thing will be the case in Death Valley, and the same thing will be the case in Raleigh.
Yeah, it's that simple. It really is. And we've talked about that so much over the last few years and this season as well. It's just if you can win those battles in the trenches, you can be the more physical football team. Carolina is talented enough, especially on offense and even on defense, to beat just about anybody in this league, if not anybody in this league, including Florida State. So it comes down to that.
Let me throw one more thing. And let me throw one more thing out there, too. One of the questions that Connor asked me when we were exchanging our 5 questions was about Duke shortening the game.
Yeah.
And what gave Carolina huge issues with Virginia, Georgia Tech, and then early against Campbell was the tempo.
Oh, yeah.
They have admittedly had major struggles with the tempo. Teams that can spread them out. They have enough on the edge. You got to respect the edge. And they go tempo and run right at you. That's what's been giving them problems. And based on one of the questions Connor asked, it appears that Duke's game plan might be to take the air out of the ball, so to speak, to slow the game down, shorten the game so they don't go tempo. Duke's in a tricky situation here because you don't really want to go tempo with Grayson Loftus at quarterback.
True.
Because you're increasing the number of decisions he has to make, especially at the line of scrimmage. And then what are you going to run? Are you going to change it to a pass or whatever the case may be? So that's going to be tricky. Or does Duke say, you know what? Other teams had success with it, so maybe we can have success with it and try it. And that could be a disaster for Duke. So Duke could end up having a game plan that actually plays into Carolina's plans because of the Duke QB situation. If Riley was out there, then Duke could play tempo. They go right at him, and Carolina have to deal with the best running quarterback they will have faced all year, and it would be a totally different animal. So Carolina benefits that Duke has quarterback issues right now, and that probably will affect how Duke approaches the game. Regardless, the Tar Heels still must stop the run at the point of attack. If they don't, they could be in trouble.
Long night. Yeah, it could be a long night for North Carolina. But
it's a very frustrating one. They could end up losing like a 35-31 type game.
Yeah, 100% because they can't stop the run. Yeah.
And if we think the natives are restless right now, imagine that.
I don't even want to think about it, AJ. I really don't. It's going to be brutal if they lose to Duke, especially with that backup quarterback situation. But no, I agree. Prediction time. I picked Carolina to win this game. For me, it's simple. If Riley Leonard's playing this game, I would be relatively confident that Duke comes in and beats them. I really think Duke's a good football team. I like how good they are defensively. I think they are better defensively than North Carolina. The stats just prove that this year. They've been incredibly consistent in that aspect. But losing Leonard like they have, Loftus from watching, so I watched a good amount of that Wake Forest game last week, and he just did not impress me at all throwing the ball. And again, that's why I think you're absolutely right. This comes down to how does Duke approach this game offensively? But how does Carolina, do they win the battle in the trenches? Can they stop the run? Because Duke has been very successful running the ball. So I think Carolina wins this game mainly because of the quarterback situation that Duke finds itself in right now. But again, if Leonard's playing in this game, I'm probably going the other way, to be honest, based on what I've seen from Carolina defensively in the last 2 ACC games. You can only go off that. So what are you thinking in this one? Do you think Carolina wins, or you're not too confident in that? What's your thoughts?
The power of confidence is an awesome thing, and it is absolute in sports, especially with young athletes. The confidence that Loftus gained, getting them a league win, and getting them in position to kick that field goal and win the game is huge. Who knows? Maybe they take the training wheels off.
Yeah, they could open it up a little bit.
And especially having confidence, hey, if you're going to take some chances, this is a defense you take chances against. Not that Wake's isn't, but that was his first game, and they played Thursday, so they had a couple extra days for him to watch film and
that's a good point.
It kind of geared toward this game. So nothing would surprise me in college football these days. Trust me. And I think Carolina, based on the way they've played defense of late, probably would give a lot of young, inexperienced quarterbacks a little confidence that they can move the ball and get their team in the end zone some. So I haven't done my prediction yet for our staff picks, but I do think Carolina wins this game. I think that if they stop the run and they force Duke to just have to throw and try to get a lot of timing throws for Loftus, to show chemistry with receivers, which he's not going to have like Riley Leonard would, I think then they would have a chance to maybe approach that Vegas line. I don't think they hit the Vegas line. I think they win this thing by a touchdown.
Take the under.
I don't know if take the under, but Carolina's going to score enough. I think Drake has a big game. I think Drake's been really, really good of late. And while Omarion has been getting all the attention, this could be one of those games where Drake just explodes. And just
last home game like we talked about.
Goes over the top of Duke's defense. They hit some quick hitting stuff to kind of nullify Duke's pass rush, soften it up some, and then go deep. Yeah, I could see something like that happening. All that said, because I can always see every scenario playing out in advance, I do think Carolina wins. I think they win by a touchdown to 10 points.
That's my prediction.
I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. I think the fans that were awesome against Miami, stunk against Virginia, were positively surprising against Campbell. I think they'll show out. I think they'll be an asset. And I think a lot of the fan talk will end, and we'll get text messages or Twitter messages from people. Take that. that kind of stuff, because a lot of people are still really pissed about what I said about.
And I stand by it, and I stand by it too.
I stand by it. Yeah,
100%. If you were in the stadium for UVA, you know what I'm talking about.
And I could tell you. And again, I'm going to reiterate: there are people inside the Kenan Football Center that are totally in with that, so they understand.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a great crowd. I think it's going to be a good atmosphere. Love rivalry games. I think Duke and Carolina are always better when they play at night.
Mm-hmm.
It's always better. They played at night over there 3 times. Well, 4 times. 4 of the last 5 meetings have been at night, I think.
Yeah, last year, that was my most memorable game.
12 was it? 12 was at night, because I remember I was with Fox and I did the Duke story about getting bowl eligible that night.
Mm-hmm.
That was a Shaquille. That was that weird Geo recovered fumble for a touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
And Shaquille Rashad actually hit Duke receiver when he was coming on the field. 14 was the chrome helmet game where the players were taking pictures of the helmets on their cell phones 10 minutes before the game started and tweeting them out. That was Marquise having a big night. 16 was a Thursday night when Carolina was in position to get to the ACC title game and Trubisky was picked on the last play. 18 was Daniel Jones in the afternoon running for 1 trillion yards. And when I asked Larry afterward, Coach, you keep saying you're close, but when you lose these games time and again, are you really maybe not that close? And Larry looked at me like he wanted to burn a hole through me with a torch gun.
Fair question.
And let's see.
Fair question.
20 was a day game in COVID, and 22 was last year at night.
Yep.
So
that was
the night games. They haven't played a night game in Kenan since the Greg Little touchdown. And I'm not even sure that was a night game. I think that was a game that started 3:30 or something like that, ended up under the lights. But they haven't played a straight up night game in Kenan. I don't remember. That may have been one that night. I'm not sure. But other than that, I don't remember these games in Kenan ending under the lights. Usually it's a noon start.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. I'm not looking forward to going to bed at 4 a.m., but I'm looking forward to the spectacle that it'll be. It'll be fun.
I agree. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good college football environment. And I will say one thing. I do like the Carolina build up before the game.
Mm-hmm.
When the band gets out there and they do all that stuff, they need to fix the intro right before the team takes the field. It still stinks.
Mm-hmm.
But the build up right to that point, they do a really good job with that. And I think it's going to be fantastic Saturday, but then it's always a little bit of a lull when you have the seniors announced, but then they'll go back in the tunnel and run out. So,
oh yeah, it'll be good, man. It'll be good, especially when Duke comes to town. It's always great. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's a really important game. The Carolina needs a 12th man Saturday night.
Yeah,
they need the players. They've seen what the fans are saying. They know what they're saying. They know that there's a lot of dumping going on right now, and I think that they run out of the tunnel right before the game, and that place is full, and there's a big buzz in the stadium. I think that'll be a 12th man. It's not always a 12th man in Chapel Hill, but I think that they could get a 12th man. I think it'll help the players. I think they need to see that.
Night games in Kenan under Mac especially ACC games have been really good. I don't think we'll see anything different.
Wait a second. The Duke game when Chaz had the interception.
Yeah, that was the only game I was.
That was a night game. Yeah, that was a night game.
It started, but I was like, I know that game ended at night. For sure.
19. No, that was a night game. That was a 7:00 ACC network game.
Yeah, I was on the field for that one.
Okay. That was a night game.
Picture of Chaz Surratt that I took after that game that I can still remember.
And that was an incredible atmosphere.
Oh, it was great. That was
Javante's fumble and Duke drives 90-something yards.
Mm-hmm. And
Chaz makes.
Oh, it was amazing. I remember that end of the game was wild. I think we have a video on YouTube that I posted from that game, if I remember correctly.
The only player on defense that could have made that play was Chaz, and he was right there.
Oh man, he was big time in that game. No, that was a fun.
So that was a night game, and that was awesome.
Yep.
So I expect the same match. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
And we don't know what uniforms they're going to wear. Do you have any prediction on the uniforms?
It won't be the traditional combo because they only wear the traditional combo against FCS opponents for whatever reason.
They wore traditional again.
It'll be all Carolina blue.
They wore traditional against Minnesota.
Yeah, they did. There's only other time.
You think it's all Carolina blue?
I think it's all Carolina blue. It tends to be for the Duke game. It feels like it seems like if they ever wear that all Carolina blue, it seems like that's the matchup to do it because it's the battle.
That Chaz one was all navy.
Yeah, I don't think they come out with anything special. I wouldn't be surprised if they whip out a chrome helmet. Man, we saw that last year. Maybe that comes into play
with that.
I think it'll be all blue. If I'm a betting man, I'd say all Carolina blue. That's my guess. That makes sense. Under the lights too. I think that would look good.
I would love to see all Carolina blue and then all Duke royal blue, like they did in that basketball game a few years ago.
Yeah, those jerseys.
Those uniforms sucked.
Yeah,
those uniforms sucked.
One of the worst uniforms combos I've ever seen.
It's just like State and Carolina and South Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's what it'll be. I think Carolina wears all blue, and I think Duke comes in and maybe.
I do like Duke's all white. I've always liked Duke and all white.
Yeah, Duke. I feel like they've wore black. Have they wore black in Kenan before? Or am I making that up?
Yeah, black.
I feel like Duke's wore black.
They can. Duke sometimes can have such horrible football combinations.
I agree. I think it should be all Carolina blue and all Duke white. I think that would be pretty sweet. I don't think Duke will wear that combo. I don't really know what Duke will wear.
I like when just the D on just put a D on the helmet. Don't screw it. They put that stupid Blue Devil logo on. Yeah, it looks terrible.
Just keep it simple, man. We're pretty simple. We're pretty simple with the jersey combos, AJ. We like to keep it simple. I think Carolina's best combo is blue, white.
Just like with I'm very simple when it comes to baseball uniforms too.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I think Carolina wears all blue, but I wouldn't be surprised if they also wore their throwback unis. They like to whip those out for bigger games. I know that they do that a lot.
They've done it once. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they'll do that for this. I think they go all blue too. I think what they wore, what they did against South Carolina.
I agree. I think that seems to be a theme when they play Duke. Because they even wore it. When was it? A couple years it was a state game last year, the last home game. They wore all blue, but they wore the blue chrome helmets in that game, if I remember correctly. So it seems like they like to do that for their state rivalries.
Well, what they've done is they've gone too far with the chromes. The 2014 when they busted out the chromes and they won at Duke, they played really well that night. The next game was at home against State. They wore the chromes and they were garbage.
Bad idea. Yeah.
Last year I thought the chromes looked good with the all white at Duke.
They did.
I thought that was actually the only time the chromes looked good. And then they wore it the next game at home against Carolina when they played them a couple weeks later, and it was garbage.
Yeah, I think it's all blue. And you guys let us know.
When they played State,
I remember that game.
Yeah, no chromes. Yeah. I'm not a chrome helmet guy.
Yeah, they're okay. It depends what kind of chrome. Some of the chromes have been better than others. So they don't do as much.
They have a lot of helmets they've worn in the past.
Mm-hmm.
When Bill Dooley got there, they had, because his brother was at Georgia, and Georgia had that look like the Packers with the circle with the G, like the oval. And Carolina had the oval with the block NC in there for a while. If you go back and look at choo-choo helmets, they had the ram horns.
I know, and I like that. Look pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, if they came out in white helmets with Carolina blue ram horns, that'd be kind of cool.
That'd be kind of sick.
I mean, if they're going to do different stuff, change it up, do eras, honor certain eras.
That's what I've always said too. Yeah.
Honor the last ACC champion with the UNC.
Those helmets would be sweet. I think those helmets would look sweet today. Just not every game, but whipping them out maybe once a season.
Honor the famous Amos Lawrence era and have the Carolina blue helmet with the thinner block NC with gray face mask.
Mm-hmm. Mix it up a little bit, man. Honor the history. A lot of history.
Or hey, it's Drake's last home game. How about the Mark May era?
Man, bring out the Mark Mays. Can you imagine?
The silver pants.
Can you imagine?
Remember the silver pants?
Yeah, I do. I don't remember it because obviously I wasn't alive, but I remember seeing pictures.
But you've seen photo. And then and no striping on the jersey, just straight Carolina blue.
Straight Carolina blue. Yeah. Let us know what you guys think. You can reach out to us on Twitter at TarIllustrated.com. What do you think Carolina's going to wear? I mean, you'll have a little bit of time before it's announced when this podcast comes out. So if you're still watching, let us know. I'm saying all blue. I think AJ agrees with me, all blue. And I'd be shocked if it's not all blue. I'm feeling very confident in that prediction, AJ. A lot more confident than I am with that than my score prediction. I'll put it that way.
Or are you I don't give a crap what they wear, just win guy? They could wear pinstripes. They could wear turquoise and yellow pinstripes. And as long as they win, you don't care.
As long as they're not wearing red or royal blue, there's a lot of fans that could not care less. Let's put it that way.
Turquoise and yellow. That's a little bit of UNCW-ish right there.
Yep. That's that turquoise and yellow. I think they got a little
blue. They got some navy blue. They got some navy blue in there. Yeah. Or if you want them to wear something totally different and new, and don't say all black because they're not going to wear black under Mac.
I don't think they're wearing navy again either. I hope they don't. I don't like navy. I just don't get it. I just don't think navy looks good. Why would you wear navy when you can wear Carolina blue, AJ? Can someone explain that?
Yeah, the last time they wore any navy, I think.
Was it the Miami game?
Navy.
Miami, Javante, Michael Carter, the navy pants. Is that the last time?
I think so, yeah. And the last time they wore it at home, I think that year they did it against Virginia Tech. They wore white pants, navy shirts, and white helmets.
And they wore the Chaz Surratt.
They may have. They may have worn navy. They may have worn navy pants at Pitt in 21.
Yeah, they love to wear the Navy pants at Pitt. I think they did. Was that the monsoon game?
Yeah.
I think they did. I'm 99% sure they wore Navy. I can picture that uniform combo. It was white jersey, Navy breeches or pants, whatever you call them. And I don't remember what the helmet was. Might have been a white helmet.
I was covering that Thursday night game at Rutgers in 08.
Mm-hmm, I remember that game.
When they broke out the Navy pants.
Yeah, for the first time. Yeah, I remember that. And
game. And that was all the Carolina media. There were a lot of Carolina media there. Were all texting their editors, and they're wearing. We didn't have cameras on the phone.
Yeah. So you couldn't do it.
Part yet. That was right when that period started, and we're texting our editors and saying they're. This is right before Twitter, I think, too.
Probably.
And they're busting out the Navy pants and stuff, and all the Rutgers media is looking at us like, "What is wrong with you people? Like, you don't understand the significance of North Carolina not wearing Carolina blue."
Yeah, it doesn't happen. It didn't happen.
Of actually wearing something. It hadn't happened in years. So
I remember that game. I really do. And probably because of the Navy thing that they brought out.
I think Bruce Carter had a pick six in that game.
Yes. For some reason, I vividly remember that game. I don't know why, because it was a long time ago, but no, it's somebody who's been watching Carolina football for a long time, went to Carolina games before he started working here. It was in the stands. I mean, I
remember being first of all, it was a full house. That's back when Rutgers was pretty good the first time under Schiano. And I remember being highly impressed with the tailgating around the stadium that night.
Yeah.
Highly impressed.
Yeah.
But they also played a lot of Bon Jovi and then Bruce Springsteen in the stadium. It's like, this is a real surprise here. Talk about stereotyping yourself.
Yeah, don't stop playing that.
I mean, how much Bon Jovi can you play in a football game?
I don't think they do it that much anymore, to be honest. I can't think of a Bon Jovi song they play anymore. I think they finally moved on from that.
At Rutgers?
Oh, you're talking about at Rutgers. Yeah. The Bon Jovi crowd up there. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
New Jersey.
Yeah, they had a great tailgate, but they had Bon Jovi and some Springsteen, and Carolina kicked the crap out of them. So the place ended. The place cleared out. And I remember looking down at the end zone to our left from the press box, and they were playing a Bon Jovi song, like 5 minutes left in the game, and Carolina's up by like 5 touchdowns or something. And the dance team is just doing their thing like they would if the place was full. And you look behind them, there's nobody in that bank.
Nobody watching over there.
It was a student section. They'd all cleared out and gone drinking.
That's fantastic.
And the dance team they're just doing it like it was competition. There's nobody behind them.
That's fantastic. You got to love that. That's college sports for you. That's college football for you right there, man. That really is when it gets certain programs and certain teams when shit gets bad.
But it was a great atmosphere for that. It was full.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I was. Yeah. It's the only time I've done it. I haven't done a basketball game at the Rack. I've never done a basketball game there.
Cool basketball.
It's the only time I've been to Rutgers was that football game.
Yeah. They
And I was impressed.
Back, starting to figure it out again too. It seems like they got a pretty good season.
Been pretty competitive. Basketball team lost to Princeton the other night. It's a hell of a
did they? I think I actually remember seeing somebody tweet about that. That was one of the upsets. That and JMU beating Michigan State. Yeah, and there was a few other ones too.
Off to a rough start.
Yeah.
ACC went 14-0.
I know. I was surprised to see that. I was like, good stuff, ACC. That's impressive right there. But yeah, hopefully that'll continue for the league's sake because God knows they need it. But AJ, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Another edition of the UNC Football Show. Appreciate y'all watching. Let us know what you think is going to happen on Saturday. Again, reach out to us on Twitter or on our website at TarHeelIllustrated.com. Want to hear your score predictions, what you think is going to happen on Saturday night. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of Carolina fans there. So looking forward to that one as always. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell too. And a big thank you to Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you sign up using that promo code HEAL to get that first deposit doubled up to $100. See you on the next one. Thanks.